Hey everyone. Uh, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Um, I'm going to start with a question for you today. What do you think makes a great villain? What is it their evil deeds, their comical nature, or is it a combination of the two? Um, there's a franchise that does villains incredibly well. Um, it's called Despicable Me and the Hilarious Minions spin-offs. Uh, there's this one guy, Gru, you might have heard of him. He's basically this grumpy supervillain who is always scheming. He wants to be the most evil supervillain in the world. And um, the thing is, he's kind of awkward and clumsy, and it's impossible not to laugh at his misfortunes, even though he's a bad guy. But you know what? Gru's not the only villain in the Despicable Me universe. There are a ton of other pretty wacky villains who are also battling for their sister. They're in history. So that kind of recently, um, let's take a look at 10 of the most memorable villains from Despicable Me and Minions. Starting with Wild Knuckles, he's this free spirited, rebellious leader of a gang called the Vicious Six. He's always looking for trouble, but you got to admit, he has a certain charm to him. Kill them, even though he's not as young as he used to be, he's still got a fiery spirit. He's a tough guy, but he's not immune to betrayal. And turns out his own crew decided to throw him overboard and leave him for dead. Thankfully for Wild Knuckles, a young and ambitious Gru is willing to team up with him to take on the Vicious Six. You have to love her overkill, a man with a love for all things 60s. He has a bit of a wild side, but he's a brilliant mind. He's always coming up with new inventions to help his wife, Scarlet, with her nefarious plans. Uh, but honestly, she's the real brains of the operation. He's like the tech guy who prefers to let his wife be the front woman. Jean-Claude is another character from the Despicable Me universe. This time he comes from the Minions, the Rise of Gru movie. You just can't miss him with his giant lobster claw and his over the top French accent fun bar. Jean-Claude might not have the biggest role, but he makes a big impact. Uh, he's one of the most absurdly funny characters they created for the franchise. Um, and and uh, let's talk about El Macho, a real bad guy in Despicable Me 2. And he starts out as this super tough wrestler, um, but he's got this weird, charming side to him. He's um, he's a master of disguise and even opens a restaurant. Um, that's how he hides from Gru, and so that's like the thing of like but he's really just waiting for his chance to strike. And boy, is he a riot. His over-the-top antics will uh, make you chuckle. Now, there's Scarlet Overkill. She's ambitious and ruthless, and she's got a seriously stylish sense of fashion. You know, she'll stop at nothing to make a name for herself. She's a fascinating villain because she's always underestimated and she's got a lot to prove. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most villainous villains can be the most relatable. Uh, Bell Bottom is a standout character in the film The Rise of Gru. She's sassy, stylish, and she's got an attitude to match. Uh, uh, you've got to love her groovy look and her driving powers. This lady's got some fire in her, especially when she takes over the Vicious Six and becomes uh, a major obstacle for young Gru. Remember those adorable minions? Well, in Despicable Me 2, they turn into wild creatures. Uh, they're purple and they're full of mischief. They bring even more energy and mayhem to the franchise, which is exactly what you want when you're watching a Despicable Me movie. Baltazar Brat from Despicable Me 3 is one of the funniest villains in the entire franchise. Um, he's a former child star who's desperate to relive his glory days. He's got a wild theatrical side to him, and he's always trying to steal the spotlight. He might be a bit of a drama queen, but he's also cunning and dangerous. Vector Perkins from the original Despicable Me is a classic bad guy. He